Alright, continuation of hemodynamic disorders. So the last topic from the chapter is shock. Shock is also known as cardiovascular collapse. Shock by itself is not a particular disease. In fact, many diseases they end up in shock. So shock is basically seen with a decrease either in cardiac output or in the effective circulating blood volume. So in either of these cases, so the patient experiences systemic hypoperfusion, and because of systemic hypoperfusion, so there will be development of hypotension, and hypotension results in hypoxia. So finally shock leads to a state of hypoxia. So we have got various types of shock. So the first one is cardiogenic shock. So we have got different causes like myocardial infarction, the most important one, and also pulmonary embolism. So in any of these cases, finally there will be a decrease in cardiac output. So because of decreased cardiac output, so there will be systemic hypoperfusion leading to cardiogenic shock. And then hypovolemic shock, so which is most commonly caused by hemorrhage and also because of other causes leading to fluid loss like burns and severe vomiting. So in either of these causes again, so there will be a decreased cardiac output, and that leads to systemic hypoperfusion resulting in shock. And then the third type is neurogenic shock. So it is seen in association with anesthetic accidents or injury to spinal cord. So in any of these cases, there will be acute vasodilation, which results in pooling of blood within the microcirculation itself, and that results in decreased effective circulation of blood volume. So again, that results in decreased cardiac output leading to hypotension. And then anaphylactic shock, which is usually seen in association with type 1 hypersensitivity reactions mediated by IgE antibody. And here also because of the vasomediators like histamine, so which are involved in causing acute vasodilation. So again that leads to pooling of blood within the microcirculation, and also there will be increased vascular permeability leading to escape of the fluid resulting in edema. So in all these cases there will be decreased effective blood circulating volume again leading to systemic hypoperfusion resulting in shock. So the most important one is septic shock. So septic shock, so which is most commonly caused by gram positive organisms. So not gram negative organisms. So most common cause is gram positive organisms, and very rarely there are fungi and gram negative organisms are involved. And septic shock is considered as the most common cause of death within the intensive care units. And there are various mechanisms which are involved, which appear very complex. So all these mechanisms together join leading to development of a state of septic shock. So initially, because of various products from the microbes, so there will be activation of inflammatory cells like neutrophils and monocytes, and these activated inflammatory cells they tend to secrete various chemical mediators, and these mediators like interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor, so they cause activation of endothelium, and also they cause various systemic effects such as fever and diminished myocardial contractility. And also these microbial products they cause activation of complement cascade, and the activated complement cascade results in endothelial activation. And finally endothelial activation, which is a major event, results in production of various mediators from endothelial cells like NO and PAF and various interleukins like interleukin 6 and interleukin 8. So all these finally results in vasodilation, increased vascular permeability. So as you have increased vascular permeability leading to escape of the fluid, and also vasodilation results in pooling of blood in microcirculation. So in all these cases finally it leads to decreased effective circulatory volume results in systemic hypoperfusion. And also there will be activation of coagulation cascade again by microbial products, and that results in endothelial activation. Along with that, so there will be a procoagulation state resulting in development of DIC, so disseminated intravascular coagulation. So because of disseminated intravascular coagulation, so as there is diffuse thrombi which are being formed followed by activation of coagulation cascade, so it causes obstruction to the vasculature, results in tissue ischemia. So finally, as these events are involving various organs of the body, so they all undergo failure that results in multi-organ failure. So followed by multi-organ failure, so there may be death of the individual too. So this flowchart shows various events which are connected with one another, finally leading to multi-organ failure. So we have got three different stages of shock. So initially there will be non-progressive phase. So non-progressive phase involves reflex compensatory mechanisms. So these reflex compensatory mechanisms, it could be seen in the form of release of antidiuretic hormone, or it could be in the form of activation of renin-angiotensin axis, and also there may be generalized sympathetic stimulation. So all these mechanisms, they try to restore the fluid, and also they try to restore the blood pressure so that there will be no exaggeration of the shock. And then if it is neglected, so then it non-progressive phase goes into progressive phase. So in progressive phase, as systemic hypoperfusion results in hypoxia, so hypoxia where there is lack of oxygen, so instead of aerobic aspiration, so now there will be anaerobic glycolysis coming into role, so for the source of energy. So the end product of anaerobic glycolysis is lactic acid. So it results in development of a state of lactic acidosis, and this lactic acidosis, it causes blunting of vasomotor response. So there is no more sympathetic stimulation. So that's why along with arteriolar vasodilation, so again there will be pooling of blood within the microcirculation, results in decreased effective blood volume in the circulation, leading to further aggravation of the shock. So if patient is even not properly being taken care of, so then it eventually goes into irreversible phase, and irreversible phase obviously results in irreversible cell injury because of hypoxia, and irreversible cell injury ends in necrosis. And coming to the morphology of shock involving various organs of the body, so brain, so we use a different term, so that is ischemic encephalopathy. So as you all know, so with the involvement of brain and spinal cord due to ischemia, there will be usually coagulative necrosis. Sorry, instead of coagulative necrosis, there will be liquefactive necrosis will be seen. And within the lungs, so everywhere else except in the brain and spinal cord, we have coagulative necrosis. So within the lung, so because of diffuse alveolar damage, we give a descriptive term here, which is known as shock lung. And then gastrointestinal tract, so again coagulative necrosis, we use a different term, that is hemorrhagic enteropathy. And because of lot of stress, so adrenal gland, if you examine, there will be complete depletion of lipid content of the cortical region. So cortical cell lipid depletion will be seen. And kidney undergoes acute tubular necrosis. And heart, just like any other organ except brain or spinal cord, there will be coagulative necrosis.